Keon Hart had learned the city by the sounds it tried to bury. He knew the hiss a bus made when it knelt at the curb, the hard little crack of a bottle broken under a cartwheel, the cough of the boiler in the bakery, where the nightman sometimes let him warm his hands if nobody important was watching. He knew the high scrape of the river gulls when the tide pulled trash against the pilings before dawn. Most of all, he knew the trains. On ordinary mornings, the subway announced itself in pieces. First came a tremor in the soles, not strong enough to move anything but steady enough to change the feel of the ground. Then, the tunnel breathed through the gratings in the sidewalk. Then, if a person was close to the cut, where the old line rose toward Candler Station, the steel began to sing. By the time the headlamps showed, the train had already told the city it was coming. That morning there was no song, there was only fog. It had come off the river during the last hour of night and filled the streets as if someone had opened a white sack above the rooftops. It hung low under the elevated freight bridge, pressed itself against shop windows, and made the sodium lamps look bruised and far away. Keon could see the first 3 buttons of his coat and the cracked leather of the satchel strap across his chest. Beyond that, the city became pieces. A bollard sweating water, the black mouth of an alley, the yellow flank of a parked taxi without a driver in it. He had not meant to be near the subway tracks. The cleaners had found him behind the parcel lockers at Bell Market just after 4, sleeping with one shoulder against a warm wall and his satchel under his coat. The woman with the gray gloves had not shouted. She had only touched the toe of his shoe with her mop handle and said, not unkindly, that the station captain was walking the concourse and Keon had better be gone before the captain proved he had a voice. So Keon had gone. He had taken the service stair up to a street that had lost its edges and walked east because east meant the bakery vents near Brindle Court, and the bakery vents meant heat. His stomach was empty enough that the smell of yeast hurt. His hands were shoved inside his sleeves. In the satchel, wrapped in newspaper, were 3 relay bulbs he had found in a bin behind a signal shop 2 days earlier. One of them might still work. He hoped the old radio man on Pole Street would give him coins for them, or at least a dry pair of socks from the heap he kept under his counter. At Candler Station, the subway cut ran uncovered for 40 yards before it dove beneath the municipal building. Years ago, there had been a proper entrance there, with a tiled stair and a token booth, and a little florist who sold violets in paper cones. But now the public doors were sealed behind plywood, and the letters above them had been painted over. The tracks still passed below, carrying the river line between the old neighborhoods and the downtown tubes. The city called Candler closed. The trains did not care. They crossed the cut every morning and evening, lights flashing through weeds and chain link, wheels ringing off the retaining walls. Keon paused at the railing because the fog was behaving wrong. It was not lying over the cut the way street fog lay over anything low. It was rising from below, thick and white, and pushed from the tunnel mouth in slow pulses. Every few seconds it folded back into itself, then swelled again. He smelled iron, wet stone, and something colder than the river, like a cellar floor after ice had melted on it. He put one hand on the railing. Nothing. He leaned farther, squinting past the chain link and the wet leaves caught in it. The tracks were down there somewhere, 6 or 7 yards below, 2 dark lines running in and out of vapor. He could just make out the service walk, the yellow edge paint, the black face of the tunnel. Then something moved on the track bed. At first he thought it was paper, a pale bundle knocked loose by the damp. Then it lifted an arm. Keon froze. The shape became a girl, thin as a thrown coat, kneeling between the running rails with one hand on the ballast and the other pressed to the side of her head. Her hair was cut unevenly and darkened by water. A canvas pack hung from one shoulder. She seemed to be trying to stand, but each time she pushed herself up, the fog swallowed her knees, and she sank again, as if the white had weight. Keon shouted. The fog took the shout and pressed it flat. The girl did not turn. He struck the railing with his palm. The sound rang against the street side of the cut, small and useless. The girl lifted her head only a little. She was looking the wrong way, toward the dead station wall, not toward the tunnel where trains came from. Keon opened his mouth to shout again, and then he felt it. Not through his shoes, through his chest. A low pressure moved under the fog, a shove of sound with no clear edge. The steel did not sing because the fog was wetting everything, damping the small warnings. The rails under the girl gleamed and vanished. Far inside the tunnel, something heavy displaced the air. The train was coming through the fog. Keon did not think about the locked gate until he was already climbing it. The chain link was greasy with dew. The spikes along the top tore the cuff of his coat and scraped his wrist. But he swung one leg over, dropped hard onto the station-side ledge, and rolled against the old plywood entrance. Pain shot up his left ankle. He rose anyway. There was a maintenance stair at the south end of the cut. He had seen workers use it in summer, carrying orange buckets and long-handled brooms. The top door was locked with a square key, but the fog had made the wood swell around the frame, and someone had wedged a bottle cap into the latch weeks ago, maybe months. Keon kicked near the knob. Once, twice. The door burst inward with a wet crack. The stair smelled of rust and old mop water. He took it in jumps, one hand sliding down the pipe rail. At the bottom, the service walk waited behind another gate. This one was not locked. It hung open 3 inches, breathing fog. The girl was trying to stand again when he reached her. "Move!" he yelled. This time she saw him. Her face was white with cold and streaked with grime. She stared as though he had risen out of the track itself. He pointed toward the tunnel, toward the place where the fog had begun to glow faintly, a dull, milk-colored brightening. The girl looked that way and understood too late. She tried to step over the rail, but her boot caught under a cable guard. She went down on one knee. Keon ran onto the ballast. He had never been that close to a running track before. The stones shifted under his feet. The rails were slick with condensed water. He grabbed the strap of the girl's pack and the back of her coat and hauled. She cried out, not loudly, more with anger than fear. Her boot came free with a tearing sound. The headlamps appeared as 2 blurred suns inside the tunnel. There was not time to reach the stair. Keon dragged the girl sideways toward a black recess cut into the wall beneath the old platform lip. It was barely wider than a doorway and half filled with cable hooks and loose grit. He pushed her in first. She struck the back wall and folded herself without being told. Keon threw himself after her, shoulder first, tucking his satchel under his ribs as the train broke out of the fog. It did not roar at first. It arrived like a building passing by inches from his face. Then the noise hit all at once. Metal striking metal, wheels hammering joints, brakes squealing softly under load. Wet wind slapped grit into the recess. The girl gripped Keon's sleeve hard enough to pinch skin. His cheek was against cold tile. A blue stripe ran along the wall at eye level, half hidden by mineral stains, and the train's windows blurred it into a single moving wound of light. Car after car passed, each one dragging more fog behind it. Through the cracks between cars, he glimpsed nothing but white. No passengers watched them. The train might have been empty, running blind through the cut, its sides beaded with water. When the last car vanished beneath the municipal building, the sudden quiet felt broken. The fog drifted back into the space the train had carved and erased the rails again. Keon did not move until he could hear his own breathing. The girl let go of his sleeve. Her fingers left 4 damp marks. "You all right?" he asked. She swallowed. "I was moving. You were on the tracks. I said I was moving." He looked down. Her right boot had split along the side. A black cable tie was caught in the torn leather, the end still looped from the guard she had snagged. Her hand shook when she reached for it. She was older than him, maybe 16, maybe 17. But hunger made ages look unreliable. She had a narrow face, a bruise along one cheekbone turning yellow at the edge, and eyes that kept trying to find exits before they found people. "You came from the tunnel?" Keon asked. She did not answer. "I'm Keon," he said, because sometimes a name stopped people from bolting into worse trouble. "Romy," she said after a moment. "Romy Cade." Another pulse moved through the wall. Keon flinched, but it was not a train. It was water somewhere behind the tiles, knocking through a pipe in slow, uneven beats. Romy heard it too. Her eyes shifted. "Is that normal?" she asked. "No." "You work here?" Keon almost laughed. It came out as a short breath. "Do I look like they pay me?" Romy dragged her split boot closer. "You knew where to run. I knew where not to stand." The fog thickened around the mouth of the recess. It rolled over the ballast like cold smoke and climbed the yellow-edge paint. Keon could barely see the opposite wall. The service stair was only 30 feet away, but the fog made 30 feet into a guess. A red signal lamp above the tunnel flickered once, smeared itself on the white, and went dark. Keon didn't like that. He stepped out of the recess, keeping one hand on the wall. The air was colder now. Droplets formed on his eyelashes. The smell of iron had sharpened. Above him, the city was waking into traffic, but down here, every sound came softened and misplaced. "We should get up," Romy said. "Wait. For what?" "For knowing which way is safe." She made a small, bitter sound. Safe went by already. Keon crouched and touched the trackside curb. Water ran along it in a thin stream, fast enough to carry little beads of rust. A drain should have been taking that water. Instead, it was sliding toward the tunnel, following the grade. A bell clicked once behind the wall. Keon turned his head. It clicked again, farther away than it should have been, then stuttered into silence. Romy held still. That wasn't a signal. No. The blue stripe on the wall continued past the recess, but farther down it bent, in a way paint did not usually bend. Keon rubbed the tile with his sleeve. Under the mineral stains was a symbol, a white droplet inside a square, with 3 short lines beneath it like comb teeth. The edges had been hidden by grime, but the passing train had shaken loose flakes of old lime. Below the symbol, small letters had been scratched into the tile by a tool fine enough to cut glaze. "When sight is gone, count water." Keon read the words twice. Romy leaned near. "What does that mean?" "I don't know. You read it like you were supposed to." "I read everything." Another knock came through the wall. Not random this time. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps, pause, 1. The girl's face changed. Not fear exactly. Recognition of a pattern, even if she did not know its language. Keon followed the blue stripe with his hand. 5 yards beyond the recess, where the closed station platform had been walled off, a tile sat lower than the others. He pressed it. Nothing happened. Romy, impatient, jammed the heel of her palm against the droplet symbol. There was a muffled clunk inside the wall. A seam appeared from floor to shoulder height, perfectly vertical, black water squeezing from it. "Don't," Keon said. Too late. Romy pulled. The wall opened inward on a hinge so well balanced that the old tile door moved with the soft reluctance of a refrigerator seal. Behind it, a narrow passage descended between glazed walls. No electric light burned inside, yet it was not fully dark. A row of pale ceramic studs set low along the left wall gave off a faint blue-green shine, as if they had stored the idea of daylight and were spending it slowly. Cold air flowed from the passage, but it was dry. Romy looked at the fog behind them. then at the stair hidden somewhere beyond it. That goes where? Somewhere the fog isn't. You first, then. Keon almost told her she had opened it. Instead, he took the first step. The passage was steep and close. His shoulders brushed the walls. The tile underfoot was ribbed for wet boots, and every 10th step had a brass-edged notch that caught the sole like a reminder to slow down. The glowing studs were not lights. They were pieces of old ceramic, glazed with some mineral that held a dim afterglow. Keon had seen watch hands like that in the radio man's drawer, but never tiles. At the bottom, the passage turned sharply left and opened into a room that should not have fit beneath the closed station. It was long, low, and arched, lined on one side with glass panels set in iron frames. Behind the panels were hundreds of thin ceramic fins, each shaped like the blade of a dull knife and strung in rows from ceiling to floor. Water gathered on their edges and slipped into troughs below with quiet, regular ticks. Along the opposite wall stood cabinets painted the color of old cream. Their handles were porcelain. Above them hung enamel boards covered in diagrams of rails, tunnel mouths, drip paths, and bell weights. The fog had not entered here. The air was cold, dry, and smelled of tile dust, mineral water, and machine oil so old it had become almost sweet. Romy stepped in behind Keon and stopped speaking. At the far end of the room, a wheel taller than Keon's chest turned one notch, clicked, and stopped. A chain hanging from it trembled. The 3-2-1 pattern sounded again, this time clear. On an enamel plate bolted to the nearest cabinet were the words, "Candler Vale Works, mist clear." No, Keon whispered the name without meaning to. "Vale Works," Romy repeated. "For fog? For the subway, I guess. Why hide a room for fog?" Keon walked to the glass panels. On the other side, through a narrow slit, he could see the track cut where they had stood. Fog pressed against the outer face of the panels, milky and restless. The ceramic fins were taking water out of it. Droplets formed, grew heavy, fell into the troughs, and ran through little copper mouths into a covered channel in the floor. At least, some of them did. Near the center of the glass wall, one frame had sagged. 3 panels were cracked, and the ceramic fins behind them leaned together in a clotted mass. Fog leaked around the broken seal, spreading over the floor in a low tongue before the dry air thinned it. Romy knelt beside the trough. "It's supposed to catch the water." Keon traced the diagram above the cabinets. A line representing the track cut ran through a rectangle marked Vale Bank. Another line led to a bell, drawn like a flower. Beneath it, someone had lettered, in neat black script, "If 14 drops fail between trains, visibility unsafe." A round glass gauge beside the board held no needle. It held beads, white and blue, stacked in a tube. The blue beads should have been at the bottom according to the painted mark. They were scattered halfway up, trapped by grime. Romy pulled her wet hair away from her face. "That train came, and nobody knew we were there." "I knew. You heard it." "Barely." He looked back toward the passage. The upper door had remained open a few inches. Fog curled down the stair, but stopped at the turn, held back by the dry current from the room. Keon did not like the way the room seemed to be doing part of its job and failing the rest. A place half working was more dangerous than a place dead. Dead things warned you by staying still. Half-working things let people trust them. A small sound came from Romy. She was standing by a wall rack, staring at a row of coats. They were not uniforms exactly, but canvas work coats, stiff with age, each marked at the shoulder with a stitched blue droplet. Beneath them were 2 hooks with nothing on them. On the shelf below sat folded wool gloves wrapped in wax paper, a tin of salve, and a square bottle of iodine gone the color of tea. Romy touched the split side of her boot, but didn't ask. Keon opened the tin. The salve had dried at the edges, but was soft in the center. He handed it to her with a pair of wrapped gloves. She looked suspicious of the offering, then took it. "You live down here?" she asked. "No." "But you knew the door." "No. Nobody just finds a hidden wall." "You opened it." Romy considered that and almost smiled. It did not last. She sat on the bottom step, peeled the torn boot from her foot, and hissed. Her sock was wet and dark at the ankle. Not broken, Keon thought. Cut and twisted, bad enough to make running a mistake. He searched the cabinets. The first held tools set in shaped slots, wooden-handled screwdrivers, a small wrench with jaws polished from use, a glass cutter, a brush made of brass wire, coils of waxed cord, flat cedar shims, a folding knife with a blunt tip, and a tin of powdered chalk. Each slot had a label. Whoever had made the room had hated guessing. The second cabinet held rolled charts. Keon lifted one and unrolled it on a workbench. It showed the candler cut from above, the station wall, the tunnel mouths, drains, signal posts, and something called the bell throat. Small blue arrows showed the usual movement of fog, from river tube to cut, across the Vale Bank, into a chimney marked West Dry Shaft, then up toward a grate on Granby Street. Romy came over, limping but interested despite herself. "What's this red mark?" Keon followed her finger. A red circle had been drawn around a narrow pipe labeled Fill Test Plug, Do Not Grout. The writing looked newer than the printed chart, but still old. Next to it was a warning. Void above Vale. City records wrong. From somewhere overhead came a dull thud. Both of them looked up. A second thud followed, then a distant mechanical growl from the street above the station. Keon knew the sound. Not subway. Construction compressor. The city had been digging on Granby Street all week, cutting the pavement near the municipal building and putting up signs about utility stabilization. Romy read the warning again. Do not grout means don't fill it, right? Right. The growl became a steady vibration. Dust drifted from the arch. A pipe at the far end of the room jerked. Its cap trembled once. Twice, a gray bead of wet cement squeezed from the rim and dropped onto the floor. Keon stared at it. Romy said, "They're filling something." The room answered with a bell click so faint it sounded embarrassed. Keon ran to the enamel boards. There were instructions in columns. Before morning service, during river fog, if bell throat fails, if street fill enters Vale void. He found the last one and read with his finger, lips moving. Close plug shoe, open dry shaft, ring void bell until street crew stops. Set blue lamps trackside. If no response, block west throat with comb screens and route water to emergency sump. The words were simple. The problem was not. A diagram showed the plug shoe in a chamber beyond the glass bank. The dry shaft was above the far arch. The void bell handle was somewhere near the track, not inside the safe room. The comb screens were stored in a rack that was empty, except for one cracked frame. Romy finished wrapping her ankle with a strip, torn from an old towel. "We can leave." Keon looked through the glass at the fog pressing against the cut. "Can you climb the stair fast?" "No." "Can you climb it slow with another train coming?" She said nothing. "The signal lamp went out," he said. "The fog bell isn't ringing. If they fill that shaft, the fog stays on the tracks. Maybe the drains back up too. So call someone." "With what?" "There are emergency phones. On the service walk, in fog, next to tracks." She wiped salve from her fingers onto the towel. "You're telling me the only way out is fixing a hidden subway fog room?" "I'm telling you I don't know another safe way yet." Romy looked toward the passage, then toward the gray cement drop spreading on the floor. The compressor above shuddered harder. Somewhere beyond the walls, men on the street were feeding pressure into a pipe marked wrong on a city plan. They did not know the room existed. Maybe nobody alive did. "What do we fix first?" she asked. Keon felt something inside his chest shift. Not relief exactly. More like a latch catching. "The plug shoe," he said. The plug shoe chamber was reached through a low oval door behind the wheel. The door's gasket had gone stiff. Keon and Romy pulled together until it opened with a sound like a boot coming out of mud. Inside was a crawl space lined with black brick. A pipe as wide as Keon's thigh entered through the ceiling and bent toward the veil void behind the broken glass bank. Gray slurry pulsed in it, held back only by the trembling cap they had seen from the room. The plug shoe sat beneath the bend, an iron plate on a screw track meant to slide under the pipe mouth and seal it. Its handwheel had been removed. In its place was a square socket. Keon searched the tool rack. The right crank was missing. "Of course," Romy muttered. They tried the wrench. Too small. They tried the blunt knife as a lever. It bent. Keon returned to the workbench and noticed a wooden box tucked beneath it, half hidden by a fallen coat. Inside were emergency pieces wrapped in oiled paper. 2 cork gaskets, 4 ceramic pins, a handle for a gauge, and a square-ended bar with a hole through one end. The tag read, "Street Fill Bar. Return to box." No excuses. He ran back with it. The bar fit. Turning the plug shoe took both of them. Keon braced his feet against the brick and pulled. Romy pushed with her shoulder, teeth clenched, 1 foot useless and 1 foot sliding. The screw track screamed. The slurry pulse grew louder above them. Gray liquid spat around the cap, dotting Keon's face with cold grit. "Again," Romy said. They hauled another quarter turn. The iron plate moved less than an inch. Keon's scraped wrist burned. He shifted his grip and saw that the track was packed with mineral crust. He crawled closer, used the brass brush from the toolkit, and scraped the groove while Romy held the bar in place. Chalky flakes fell into his sleeve. The air smelled of wet lime. The next turn moved easier. The plug shoe slid under the pipe mouth with a heavy scrape. The cap bulged once, then settled. Slurry stopped dripping into the room. Above them, the compressor kept growling. Pressure pushed against the sealed shoe with slow, ugly knocks. "That hold?" Romy asked. "For a while." "How long is a while?" "Longer than before." Back in the main room, the fog leak had grown. The broken glass bank was breathing white across the floor, dampening the cabinets. The bead gauge trembled and caught. The bell wheel turned 1 notch, then failed to drop. Keon checked the next instruction. "Open dry shaft." The shaft entrance was a square hatch above the far arch, reachable by iron rungs set into the wall. A painted sign beside the rungs showed a stick figure climbing with one hand, a tool bag below, and the words, "Do not open without blue lamps set." That meant trackside, where trains could see. But the blue lamps were dark, and the handle for them, according to the chart, was near the service walk. Romy saw where he was looking. "No, just to set the lamps. You almost got killed once. We both did. So we learned." Keon took a coil of waxed cord from the cabinet and tied one end around his waist. He tied the other to the leg of the workbench. It was not enough to stop a train, but it might stop a boy from stepping too far into fog. He took the caged hand lamp from the hook by the door and shook it. Nothing. He opened the side. Inside was a small battery well and contacts green with corrosion. One of the relay bulbs in his satchel had the same base as the lamp's burned one. His satchel. He had nearly forgotten it. The bulbs had survived the train. He wiped one on his sleeve, fitted it into the lamp, and scraped the contacts with the blunt knife until bright metal showed through. When he closed the switch, the bulb came alive with a weak amber glow. Romy stared. You carry light bulbs around. I was going to sell them. To who? Someone who appreciates almost light. The lamp's glow did not cut far, but it gave edges to the fog. Keon opened the tile door and stepped onto the service walk. The cord tightened behind him. Romy stood in the doorway with both hands on it. "Talk," she said. "What?" "Keep talking. If you stop, I pull." Keon wanted to say that pulling him under a train would not help. Instead, he said, "The wall is on my right, track on my left, fog in front. Lamp bad, but alive. Keep going." The service walk's concrete was slick. Water slid over his shoes. The emergency phone box appeared as a red blur and vanished behind him. Ahead, a metal post held 3 hooded lenses pointed down the tracks. Their glass was painted blue. Beneath them was a lever in a locked cage. The lock had rusted into a lump. Keon set the lamp down, took the blunt knife, and worked the cage latch. It did not move. The fog swallowed the tool's small clicks. He imagined another train forming inside the tunnel, soundless until too late. His breathing got too fast. "Keon," Romy called. "Words." "Lock's bad." "Break it." "With what?" "Anything." He looked at the lamp. The cage around it had a steel handle. He swung the lamp carefully, once, twice, then harder. The rusted lock snapped on the 3rd strike and skittered into the fog. The bulb flickered, but stayed lit. He pulled the lever down. At first, nothing happened. Then one blue lamp lit, weak and grainy behind wet glass. The second followed. The third flared bright enough to stain the fog cobalt. The service walk, the rail, and the old tile wall appeared in layers. Blue was not clear sight, but it was proof of direction. A bell rang once in the hidden room. Romy pulled the cord twice to tell him she had heard. Keon backed toward the doorway, never turning from the tunnel. Halfway there, the rails began to hum. He froze. This time the sound was clearer. Not close yet. Coming from downtown, from the tunnel behind him. "Keon!" Romy shouted. He moved. The cord slapped his knee. He reached the tile door and tumbled through just as light thickened behind him. Romy pulled the door nearly shut, but left it cracked to watch the track. A train passed slower than the first, its wheels throwing blue light back into the fog. The lamps did their work. The motorman must have seen them, because the train answered with a short horn note, careful and questioning, and slowed before entering the cut. The car slid by like wet walls. Inside the room, the bell wheel moved again. This time, it completed a full turn and released a clear brass note from a horn-shaped bell near the ceiling. Keon leaned against the cabinet, shaking. Romy looked at him with the narrow, measuring expression of someone who had not decided whether gratitude was safe. "You're bleeding." His scraped wrist had opened under the cord. Blood ran into his palm. "There's salve," he said. "You use it. I need to open the dry shaft. You need your hand." She took the tin, wrapped his wrist with a strip of cloth, and tied it tight. She did not make it gentle, but she made it good. Then she limped to the wall rungs. "I can climb," she said. "Your ankle is worse going sideways. Up is different. That is not how ankles work. How many ankles have you kept alive?" Keon had no answer. The dry shaft hatch was stiff, but Romy climbed with a strange economy, keeping her bad foot close and using her arms more than her legs. Keon followed with the tool bag slung across his chest. At the top, the hatch wheel turned only halfway before stopping. Through a small glass porthole in the hatch, they saw nothing but gray. "West dry shaft," Keon read from the enamel card screwed beside the wheel. "Open in stages. Check draft ribbon. If ribbon sucks inward, close and clear throat." A strip of linen hung from a nail. It dangled straight down. Romy pulled the wheel again. It did not move. Keon inspected the hinge side. A safety pin held the hatch shut, its ring corroded flat. He used the square-ended street fill bar to pry it. The ring snapped off. The pin remained. "Move," Romy said. She took a ceramic comb pin from the emergency box, set its blunt end against the safety pin, and struck it with the heel of the wrench. Once. Twice. On the fourth strike, the pin jumped free and clattered down the rungs, barely missing Keon's shoulder. The hatch wheel turned. Air sighed upward. The linen ribbon lifted toward the opening, not inward. Good. Romy opened the hatch another quarter turn. A column of fog rose through the shaft, drawn away from the track cut. The room changed almost immediately. The low white tongue leaking across the floor thinned. Water began to tick faster from the ceramic fins. Then something broke loose above. A clump of black grit and dead leaves dropped through the opening onto Romy's shoulder. She coughed. More debris slid down, followed by a paper cup, a flattened cigarette tin, and a nest of wet twine. The draft faltered. "Throat's blocked," Keon said. "Of course it is." The instruction card showed a clean-out hook stored on rung 7. It was there, hanging under decades of dust. Keon passed it up. Romy reached into the shaft with the hook and dragged debris downward. It came in disgusting handfuls. Leaves, pigeon bones, clotted paper, a child's rubber ball bleached pale, and mud that smelled of street drains. Keon held the bag while she filled it. Her arms shook, but she kept going until the draft ribbon snapped straight up and held. Below, the bell rang twice. Not a warning, a correction. The dry shaft opened with a long, hollow breath, and the fog outside the glass bank began to move toward it, no longer pressing into the cut. Keon climbed down first. His legs felt rubbery when he reached the floor. Romy descended slower, one rung at a time, face damp with sweat despite the cold. When she stepped off the last rung, she swayed. Keon caught her elbow. She jerked once, then let him steady her. "Don't make that mean anything," she said. "It means gravity works. That's all? That's all." They ate because the room had food, though neither trusted it at first. In a cabinet marked shift use, they found tins of hard crackers sealed in wax, sugar lumps in a glass jar, and tea in a square tin. The crackers tasted like dust and salt, but did not crumble into poison. The tea had lost most of itself to time, but hot water was impossible, so they chewed the leaves with sugar and called it breakfast, because naming a thing sometimes made it less poor. Keon wanted to keep working immediately. Romy made him sit for 5 minutes with his back to the cabinet while she studied the charts. She read slowly, lips pressing together at hard words, but she saw patterns fast. The glass bank was the first defense. The dry shaft was the second. The bell counted the water. The fog gave up. When too few drops fell, the fog was too thick or the combs were blocked. When too many fell too fast, the drains were backing. The blue lamps warned trains that human sight could not be trusted. "What's this?" she asked. She pointed to a small chamber drawn below the track, labeled sand table. A pipe led from it to the rails near the tunnel mouth. Keon found the matching note. For slick rail. Mist makes wheels slip. Sand table feeds dry sand onto the approach if the rail beads over. Romy looked through the glass at the track. The railheads were bright with water. Is it feeding? They followed the pipe with their eyes. On the wall, a little window showed a column of sand in a glass tube. The top half was full. The bottom half was empty. Between them, something had jammed. Keon tapped the glass. Nothing moved. The next train would break on wet rail. The sand table chamber was not reached from the main room. It lay under the service walk, accessible through a floor hatch near the tile door. Keon lifted the hatch and smelled dry dust, which was promising, and mouse droppings, which was not. A ladder descended into a space barely high enough to kneel. The sandhopper sat there like a square iron stomach, its lower gate controlled by a lever with 3 positions: closed, pulse, sweep. It had stopped between closed and pulse. The jam was not rust, it was cloth. Someone had stuffed a strip of blue fabric into the gate from outside the room, perhaps to stop a leak years ago, perhaps to steal sand without spilling it, perhaps just because people used whatever fit when a thing complained at the wrong hour. The fabric had hardened with mineral dust until it became stone. Keon dug at it with the blunt knife. Romy held the lamp. Fine, dry sand sifted into his hair and eyelashes. He sneezed. The lever dropped suddenly to pulse. A soft rush moved through the pipe. Above them, through the floor, they heard grains whispering onto rail. Romy smiled for the first time. It was quick and almost private. It still had sand. Someone filled it. When? Keon looked around the chamber. On the wall near the ladder, marks had been scratched in columns. Not dates. Initials and small lines. Each line may be a refill, maybe a shift. KH was not there. Neither was RK. The newest mark was old enough to be furred with dust. People kept this going, he said. People keep all kinds of things going until they can't. The words came out flat, but he heard the thing behind them. Romy had been kept going by motion, by not stopping long enough for anyone to decide what she was worth. Keon knew a version of that. He had an aunt in a hospital ward up north who used to sew his school shirts, even when her fingers swelled. When she got sick, the apartment became a place where other adults spoke softly about arrangements and then loudly about rent. Keon had walked out before the arrangements hardened around him. He told himself it was temporary, but temporary had begun to learn his shape. They returned to the main room and found that the gray slurry pressure had resumed, not at the sealed plug shoe, but in another place. A hairline crack had opened along the ceiling near the workbench. Wet cement seeped through in slow worms. Romy tilted her head back. They didn't stop. They don't know the bell. Then we ring louder. The void bell handle was on the track side, beyond the blue lamppost, mounted under a protective hood. The instruction board showed that it sent a mechanical hammer up the dry shaft into a street plate marked with a warning. Hollow below. Stop fill. It was made for exactly this mistake. It had probably not been used in years. Keon hated that the room kept asking them to go near the tracks. Romy hated it too, but she said, "I'll go this time. You can't run. I can sit and ring a handle. You have to get there. You set the lamps. Trains will slow." Will is a big word. So is can't. They made a better line this time. Waxed cord from Keon's waist to Romy's, and a second line from Romy to the workbench, giving them both a path back. Keon carried the weak lamp. Romy carried the square bar like a cane. The fog outside had thinned from wall to wall, but it still filled the cut in patches. The blue lamps made islands of color. They moved on the service walk, not the ballast. Keon kept between Romy and the track, though she muttered that this only meant he would be hit first. The void bell hood was bolted to the wall beyond the lamppost. Its handle hung down, iron worn smooth by hands long gone. Romy sat beneath it, braced her good foot against the wall, and pulled. Nothing. She pulled again. The handle moved an inch and stuck. Keon opened the hood. Inside, a chain ran over a small sprocket packed with black grease. The grease had become tar. He scraped it with the knife, then worked powdered chalk into the links, because the tool cabinet had chalk, but no fresh oil. Romy pulled again. The chain jumped, coughed, and moved. Far above, through the dry shaft, a hammer struck metal. The sound came down to them after it went up, a deep street-level boom. Romy's eyes lit. She pulled again. Boom! Again. Boom! On the 5th strike, the compressor above changed pitch. On the 7th, it stopped. Silence spread through the old station. Not true silence. The city never gave that. But the pressure in the ceiling stopped growing. Then a flashlight beam cut through the thinning fog. 2 construction workers came along the service walk with hard hats and a radio, angry because fear had embarrassed them. "You kids crazy?" one shouted. "This is restricted right of way." "The room behind the wall is taking your grout," Romy called back. "Your plan is wrong. There is no room there." The fog answered before Keon could. The dry shaft, shaken by the pressure above, coughed and dropped a bent square of old grating onto the track ahead of the north tunnel. The ribbon inside the veil works fell limp. Fog climbed again, rolling across the blue lamps until their light became weak and smeared. A horn sounded in the north tunnel. An inspection set was coming. Slow perhaps, but still heavy. And now there was metal on wet rail. Keon ran for the tile door. Romy followed, limping hard. Inside, the enamel board offered one last instruction. If the dry shaft failed, lock comb screens and open the river-cold gate. Do not stand in the veil path. They had no proper comb screens. They had one cracked frame, old canvas coats, waxed cord, cedar shims, and hands. Keon tore the coats from the rack. Romy tied them across the broken glass bank while he wedged the sagging frame. The first construction man reached the doorway and stopped speaking when his flashlight found the hidden room. Glass fins, bead gauge, gray cement behind the plug shoe, drip bell shivering in its frame. "Help or get out," Romy snapped. The man helped. The river-cold gate was knee-high, black-painted, and slick with condensation. Keon took one side of the wheel, Romy took the other, and the construction man gripped the top. The inspection train entered the cut as a yellow blur in fog. Its brakes squealed, searching for bite. Keon saw the fallen grating between the rails and imagined the wheel catching it. The gate would not move. Keon wrapped his bandaged wrist around the rim and pulled until pain flashed white. Romy drove her shoulder against the opposite side. The construction man put his weight into the top. The wheel broke free with a groan. Cold struck the room from below. The canvas snapped inward. The ceramic fins chimed, but held. Outside the glass, fog flattened and streamed downward through the veil, stripped into water and drawn beneath the floor. The blue lamps sharpened. Sand whispered onto the wet rail. The inspection train screamed against its brakes and stopped 3 yards before the fallen grating. For a moment, no one moved. Then the bell began to ring in clear brass intervals. Not pretty, not musical, but useful. By noon, transit workers had removed the grating. The grout hose on Granby Street had been shut down, and a supervisor with a clean helmet was asking how a room full of glass combs, drip bells, sand pipes, and blue lamps could be missing from every current drawing. Keon stopped explaining and showed the system. The plug shoe, the dry shaft, the sand table, the river-cold gate, the canvas over the broken glass. Romy followed with the street fill bar and corrected anyone who reached before reading. A records man named Ansel Pruitt arrived with brittle plans in a leather tube. They named the place Candler Vale Works. Missed clear no. But the signatures at the bottom were trades and names instead of officials. Tile setter, lens washer, relay cleaner, glass cutter, night porter, sand table, water count. Keon found Hartwell Crow beside water count and felt the room change shape inside him. Aunt Joella had said the crows worked under the city where nobody hung plaques. Romy found a dull tin disc scratched with V, Cade, glass wash, and held it as if the past had waited in metal because paper could not be trusted. By evening, a retired tower clerk named Mrs. Livia Sorn came down with a cane and a memory sharper than the supervisor's tablet. Her mother had cleaned lenses on the river line. Her uncle had counted drops after a fog accident nearly killed a porter named Ezra Noon in the early subway years. The official repair had been brighter lamps. The real repair had been this hidden room, built after hours by people who knew fog did not respect paperwork. They called themselves the Water Count. They made sight where sight failed. Then new managers sealed their work behind clean maps. That night, when river fog returned, the room was not sealed. The blue lamps were turned on by instruction, not accident. The dry shaft drew vapor upward. The sand table pulsed before each slow train. Keon stood behind the repaired portion of the glass bank in one of the old canvas coats. Romy stood beside him with the VK disc tied inside her pack. "I should go before morning," she said. "Your ankle says no." "My ankle does not get a vote. Where would you go?" She looked toward the service walk where she had nearly died. Away. Away is honest. Keon understood that. Away had kept him moving after Aunt Joella went into the hospital and the apartment stopped being his. But Away also made every useful thing temporary. It made a warm vent, a safe recess, and a working room into things a person had to leave before they could become true. "This room needs people," he said. "Rooms always need people. People need rooms and get told they are trespassing. This one opened for you." I shoved a wall while scared. "It still opened." She studied him. "You think that means something?" "I think it means the hinge works." For the first time, she laughed without trying to hide it. The following weeks did not become easy. Keon still slept lightly. Romy still vanished twice and returned without explaining where she had gone. Aunt Joella was still sick, though improving. There were forms, inspections, arguments, and meetings where people used the word liability as if it could turn a wrench. But Candler Vale was no longer a dead void on a wrong plan. A window was installed beside the tile door. The cracked glass bank was repaired. The dry shaft grates were painted with the droplet and comb mark. The blue lamps kept their old hoods. The original tin discs were copied and returned to their hooks. Keon became a supervised water count trainee. He learned how river fog changed before it thickened, how bead gauges told truth before eyes did, and how a wet rail sounded when sand touched it. Romy became comb wash and gate watch, though she refused any title printed on a badge. She cleaned ceramic fins with vinegar water, reset the bell escapement when it ran fast, and corrected grown men with radios when they reached before reading. She did not become soft. She became precise. On the first hard, cold evening of January, a heater failed on a train south of Condler, and passengers had to be walked past the closed platform while fog gathered in the cut. Keon set the blue lamps. Romy checked the sand table. At the end of the passenger line came a boy younger than Keon, trying not to cry as fog moved around the rails. Keon crouched near him. "Hear that bell?" The boy nodded. "It counts water, means the fog is being handled." "By who?" Keon looked through the window into the Vale Works. Romy stood by the comb bank in the old canvas coat, face lit by the bead gauge, hand resting near the river-cold gate without touching it. "By people paying attention," Keon said. Later, after the passengers were gone, another train came through the fog. Keon heard it first as pressure, then as rail song, then as light caught and softened by white. Romy heard it too. She stood well back from the track edge, not because someone had ordered her, but because she knew where danger began. The train slowed under the blue lamps and passed safely. Water slipped down the ceramic fins. Sand whispered once onto wet rail. The bell counted what the city had almost forgotten. Keon signed the log. Keon Hart, water count trainee. Romy took the pencil after him and wrote, Romy Cade, comb wash, and gate watch. Do not make that mean anything, she said. It means the hinge works, he answered. This time she did not argue. They closed the tile door from the inside, not to hide the room, but to keep the fog moving along the path prepared for it. Above them, the city blurred under river weather and wrong maps corrected by hands. Below, in tile, glass, patient metal, and counted water, 2 names stayed where they had once been expected to vanish.